Welcome to another week of Don't Feed Lookup. We're super lucky to have Ovadia, the co-founder of The Perfect Gene, with us today. And just to dive right in, Ovadia, can you tell us a little bit about your background, how you got to where you are today, and maybe touch on, I know The Perfect Gene kind of has a pretty unique DNA. So if you could just touch on that as well.
For sure. First of all, hi guys. Farwell, thank you for having me. Always a good time. Okay, my background. I started my career a long time ago. I'm 41, so I started my career like 2006 on Wall Street. I worked at BlackRock. Through a series of odd coincidences, ended up working on some of their gnarly projects like the Bear Stearns bailout, the AIG stuff, Maiden Lane 1 and 2. Um, I was a kid. I was doing the work of an ant, but it was pretty cool to be exposed to all of that, I should say. Learned a lot, but I kind of always knew Wall Street wasn't for me. Um, I grew up in a place where people tended to sell clothing and invest in real estate, and I thought those guys were making quite a bit more money than the Wall Street guys and having more fun. So I was like, Wall Street's awful. I'm done. This sucks. But it's crazy to me that I have friends who are still there 20 years later, but I think I'm having more fun than they are. Um, so I ended up doing ecom consulting. I started a failed like venture incubator, which I learned a lot from, but it was a terrible idea. I was not ready to do it by any stretch. Thank God I didn't really waste too much of other people's money. And then I ended up working on a venture-backed company called Kidbox with a very cool team, very cool project, kind of a Stitch Fix for kids. Also kind of suffered from the venture funding problem. Too much money, probably not enough attention to the P&L and cash flow. And long story short, it's not around anymore. So Kidbox was really, sorry, The Perfect Gene was really born of that project for two angles. One, intense focus on profitability from day one. We basically put $100,000 in a bank account and that was it. If it ran out of money, we were closing up shop. That was our bet. So it's been a contribution margin unit economics business from day one and continues to be. The second part that came of it was Kidbox was really mom focused marketing, which I think I did a decent job of, but not shockingly, I'm not a mom. I don't have kids. Probably not going to be the most empathetic marketer. So with Zach, co-founder of The Perfect Gene, he has a clothing business that him and his kind of a family business, sizable business. They do a lot of business with TJ Maxx. And we always kind of said, like, let's do something together. He found this jean fabric. He's like, this is going to be great. Let's put it in a direct-to-consumer brand and sell it. And we're going to sell it by being ourselves, which is goofy, weird, cursing, making jokes. Hopefully that resonates. And again, if it didn't and we ran out of money, we were done. So the whole thing really grew with that, all of a sudden, very popular term, bootstrapped. But really, it was just let's not lose money because losing money is a bad thing. And that's really the origin of it. It's two simple insights. Don't lose money, which is Warren Buffett's rule number one. And rule number two, don't forget rule number one, capital is precious. And when you borrow or take an investor on, you have this really intense ethical fiduciary responsibility that most people really don't take seriously. And they think it's kind of like fun to spend money and, you can see it. All the SaaS vendors are out doing golf events and shit with other people's money, and it's not so clear that that's like the best use of funds versus investing consistently and endlessly in product, and your customers and making them really, really happy. But I get it. You got to get clients and all that stuff, and people like to be
I
taken
hope that
out.
wasn't a
But
shot. I hope that wasn't a shot at Prescient, because that's what we
why?
just did.
Did you guys
A
do
golf
golf
tournament.
events? I have no idea. I'm really sorry. I didn't mean
Yeah.
that. You could cut that out.
Well, no,
Um,
no, it's
I
okay.
I
Yeah.
swear I had no idea. It's someone invited
Yeah.
me to a golf event and I said I don't golf. But whatever, you get the
Yeah.
joke.
Of
Everyone's
course.
doing
Yeah, no, of
crazy
course.
dinners, crazy events. The money's big, and I get it. It's a CAC problem and LTV problem. And I do not tell people how to run their business, but I know that there's a lot of money sloshing around, and you'll hear
Absolutely.
from me more and more that I think there's too much money sloshing around, and it means that there's
No,
not the
that's
best
fair.
ideas and not the best operators and not the best execution because there's cushion. Um, And I
That's
actually want to
yeah,
see a lot more focus on making healthy businesses for the ecosystem. I think that'd actually be a way
yeah.
better approach.
So
But really,
much
you
to
can
dive
cut that
into.
out. That was not a
Yeah.
shot, I swear. Real,
No,
I
of
promise. I had
course. Yeah.
no idea.
Take the shots. Take the shots. Better
I
exposure,
like
you
you
know.
guys. I like Mike. I like you, obviously. I would never talk shit, but
Well, back to yeah. I mean, there's so much in that. I mean, I've always respected how you've run that bit of Perfect Gene in terms of like first order profitability, everything about profit. Talk about that $100,000 you had initially. How do you think about even deploying that initial funds just to get the proof points that you're seeing? Okay, this is actually working, and we should still scale in these areas.
it's a very good question. So we basically allocated the money. I might get this slightly off. 25,000 bucks for inventory, which is a relatively small buy. 25,000 for photography, site, um, stuff. $25,000 for ads. That was really our first slug, and $25,000 is cushion. Roughly. I'm not saying that's right. That's just where we ended up landing. The business began with the unit economics. There was a couple of core assumptions around what's our break-even ROAS, depending on return and exchange rate. So if the return rate is 10%, 15%, 20%, if the exchange rate is same 10, 15, 20%, and if our kind of units per order was another big assumption, and we basically ran the business and that all landed, and we calculated it to the penny, fulfillment costs, fraud assumptions, credit card processing fees. Now everyone talks about contribution margin. Like, the reality is that VCs understood contribution margin 2017, 2018, towards the end of that cycle, and they were really pushing people to measure it that way. And that's how we ran the business. So as long as we were hitting whatever it was, a 1.6, 1.8 blended new customer ROAS, we knew we were making money. And because we ran the rest of the business so lean, so tight, it wasn't really a problem that we had to really model super carefully, as like, what's our head count? It was just Zach and I for the most part, a couple of consultants. We ran with Jessica Herman, who runs CX. We've worked together for closing in on 8 or 10 years at this point. She's amazing. But the real lesson was contribution margin and unit economics, which I learned from raising the Series B and Series C's at Kidbox, which was really and we built a lot of data infrastructure at Kidbox, which was incredibly impressive. And we were measuring everything down to contribution margin. So that was a very normal muscle for me, because that's how you have to run a business. Revenue, it's become popular to say revenue is a vanity metric. Yes, it's true. It's not that relevant. Like, Amazon does whatever it is, I don't know, 300, $400 billion of GMV. That's not the relevant revenue metric for them across their business. So it's really important to understand, and you want to tie your KPIs towards something that's closer to cash flow, because this is a cash flow business.
Yeah. You mentioned a big piece of that puzzle is obviously running a lean team. Can you maybe chat through one, what does lean mean? Like, how many people do you guys have? How many did you start with? And then two, how are you using data to kind of drive efficiencies through that lean team?
The first question is easy. We're grown massively. We're less than 10 now from, 2. Reality is it's sort of hard to count, because there's agencies and 3PL. There's obviously quite a few people who are touching the business, but in terms of people who are like full-time employees or like contractors who are dedicating a good chunk of time to Perfect Gene is less than 10, I would say. Also, Zach, my partner, he runs a very large wholesale manufacturing business. So we make the clothes off of that infrastructure. And we also get quite a bit of financing as needed through that infrastructure, which is incredibly helpful. It's an amazing cheat code. Making clothing, making any product is incredibly, incredibly difficult. It is hard. There are people who have 20 years, 30 years, 50 years of experience doing it. I always thought of me, I'm not a product person. So I was like, yeah, 100%. I want to work with someone who knows this better than I do. So I think that was like really one of the core insights. It also, we gave up a bunch of equity in return for very flexible and kind of capital partner who has capital available, that if we ever needed to borrow or if we needed terms, we had them available. So that was something that was very conscious up front, and it really let us run very lean and kind of focus on that. And we didn't have to grow at certain rates or sell through at a certain rate. So it gave us it gave the business patience. In terms of how we've grown, I've always believed in stage appropriate growth and stage appropriate structures. You don't need to do everything at once. You don't need to move so fast. Time is actually your friend. It's compounding is your friend. Sales compound, right? As long as you have retention, which means you have core product market fit, then retention will build your cake layer as each cohort matures. What you don't want to happen is your cohorts go down to zero. As long as you have some people who are continuously buying, you're going to compound your business as long as you're acquiring customers and the core unit economics work. So that's how we viewed it. Is like this is a lifestyle brand from day one. We do not care to get to $1 billion. We do not know how to run $1 billion company. We don't want to. It's not like important to us. This is a lifestyle business. We want this to be fun. We want to make money. And we want to have a great team of people who we're paying really well and who are invested and are having a good time. And that's kind of the way we ran it. So we grew, we keep it lean, not for lean's sake, but it's actually a very effective way to run an e-com business.
Ovadia, can you talk a little also about that flexible financing facility and how important that has been? I think we've talked about this in the past, but
yeah,
kind of like this negative net working capital piece. And also, I would love to understand it versus like the Kidbox, example with taking, let's say, venture funding versus the flexible facility. Like, how has that really changed the business? And when have you like really used that facility to say, hey, I need to hit this next level of growth? This is where it's come into play for us.
Very good question. So the Kidbox model, there's really nothing wrong with it. It's just a different bet. And I think a lot of founders don't understand the bet that they're actually making. So the Kidbox bet was, let's spend a lot of money, build a world-class household brand. We have good core unit economics. Those worked. And it was really a question of, well, customers love the product. And, it wasn't supposed to be a $20, $30 million business that was making a couple of $1 million a year. It was supposed to be a moonshot. Let's go build an awesome brand, awesome product, do all the things that you need to do to get to $1 billion fast, right? That's the bet. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a great bet to make, but you're going to have a high fail rate when you do that. I think we did a lot of things really well there. I think we did things, in hindsight, there are things that probably were done too fast and we could have been a little slower, more thoughtful, whatever, different game. This is designed to be not $1 billion bet. This business will never be $1 billion business. And most retail brands don't develop. There are Simeon Siegel, who's also all over LinkedIn. He has a great piece. There's I forgot the number. There's 15 monoline brands that do $1 billion a year. And you're starting to talk about Victoria's Secret, Nike, Adidas, yada, yada. There are not a lot of them. It is most brands have a natural point where they'll end up at 30 million, 50 million, 10 million, 200, whatever. And there's a limit to what you can do to grow it past that. If your product people don't want your product past that level, you've saturated the market, right? I lost the thread a little bit, so let me go back.
You brought up another question I'm going to put in the back of your mind, which I know you're going to talk about later, is do you think direct to consumer businesses are VC fundable? And that's going to be a different question we're going to come back to, but I know it's going to
totally
be back
depends on the bet, but yes.
Yeah.
Well, let's put it in the back and then have some thoughts on that. For sure. It's an interesting question also. So what is the perfect gene? The perfect gene was really designed to say, let's make this very simple. And we are very happy if it's small. We thought, Zach and I initially said, if we can get the equivalent of $100,000 a year of passive income each from it, we will be quite happy with the result. It's a quite modest goal, right? But I view a brand a little bit as a real estate investment. If you can build a brand, so to speak, you can build the building, people will pay you rent in a building because it's useful to have a building and it's hard to make. Same thing with a pair of jeans. If you build a brand and people want to buy your jeans, they'll continue to pay you for this product. And it just doesn't have to always be at the edge of the finances and the edge of growth. You can, at most points, slow your business down, be profitable, or just grow slower and generate more cash. And you'll be in a much more comfortable place. And that was just the choice that we made, is to have this be a little bit calmer. Certainly fun. You could tell from the voice, we're having fun. We want to have fun. We think like what's the point if it's a hard business? E-commerce is a grind, but if you're not having a little bit of fun and you're laughing at your ads, like, what are you doing? We just don't take ourselves that seriously. We don't take, in the end of the day, we're selling a pair of pants. It's a great pair of pants. It's a fucking great pair of pants, but it's a pair of pants. Like, there are other founders, hanging out with, founder of Care and Wear last night. He's making clothes for cancer patients. That is like a real human value add. We are not doing that. People love our pants. Don't get me wrong. It's good. It's like good for humans, but just not that important if the perfect gene disappeared. So we just didn't take it that seriously, and we didn't pretend that it's something that it's not. And that let us focus. So as it comes down to like, how did we hire up? How did we use data for that? It was just like kind of a different set of goals than a lot of people have. And I think Zach and I had been through a lot of failures. It's not like we had this brilliant idea. We've just been through a lot of failures, and we said we just want to build a business that can be chill. And we understood, as long as we're hitting 1.8 blended new customer ROAS, the business will be healthy and we can continue to scale it, spend maximum dollars up to a 1.8 new customer ROAS. The early algorithm was, if it's a 2x ROAS, increase spend until it goes to a 1.8. If it's a below 1.8, decrease spend until it ends up at a 1.8. That was a very simple guidepost that kept the business super healthy. Then you just measure your P&L, your contribution dollars, and that tells you how much room you have to hire. And that was it.
Yeah, yeah, I really appreciate you bringing up. I think a lot of founders kind of get caught up in their business, and like there's probably another CEO that would be sitting in your seat that would probably say that they are changing the world with Gene. So it's like really refreshing and humbling on your part to take it not so seriously, and just kind of call it for what it is. You
Yeah.
hinted a little bit at retention and kind of like the quality of the gene. What are you guys doing, and how are you like finding people coming back to like buy a second, third pair of jeans, or like gifting it to a friend? How is that shaping up in the business?
We have world-class retention rates. We have cohorts that are north of 50%. I'm very proud of that. Uh, if you see our emails, you will realize that they are not super special. The product is what gets someone to come back. There is no amount of hacking, no amount of AI bullshit, no amount of discount craziness that you can really run that's going to convince someone to buy something they don't want. Yeah, you could get it once, you could trick someone. For the most part, people got to want what you're selling. And if that's not the case, you're in the wrong game. Don't chase it. That was the point with us, is we said, can this $100,000 basically prove out if people want a second pair of jeans? That's what you're optimizing for. Who told me this? Stuck in my head. Maybe his name is Michael Lackman. He ran a coffee company. And I met him at an event. Oh, I remember all this. This is good details. I met him at an event from Landmark Ventures. The friend of mine, Scott Zackheim, we were researching TV Squared, which was a TV attribution platform before Tatari, or alongside Tatari. Awesome people. They just sold for a lot of money. And Mike Lackman told me, he goes, we measure CAC to the second order. It stuck in my brain for a long time. He's like, who cares? He is a subscription coffee business, I think. I have no idea what happened with it, but he said CAC on your first customer is sort of irrelevant, especially if you're doing this whole LTV to CAC thing, which was very popular with VCs back in the day, now different. But he was saying, I measure my LTV to CAC, and I measure CAC not at my first purchase, at my second purchase. And I was like, that makes a lot of sense. So our bet was that people would want more of these jeans. How do we know? Because Zach, partner, has sold a very similar gene in hundreds of thousands, if not at the time millions of units. to off price, TJ Maxx, Marmax, and we knew that stretchy jeans was a thing because we can see the data. So he made an amazing jean, and once we put it in market and people tried it out, people loved it, and so they came back and bought more. It's like that simple. We do not do anything. I think we do have like a very interesting email marketing program, and we do all the right things, best practices, post-purchase, yada, yada, yada. Our emails are very weird, very funny, very simple. The only thing I'll say with the brand side on that is that we intentionally made the brand very lo-fi visually. You could tell it's just a lot of white background, which is the e-commerce no-no. The product shots are friends, not like sexy models going, whatever. It's very simple. And the whole point of the email program is less about personalization and more about being personal. I want the recipient of the email to get it and say there was someone sitting behind the computer tapping out an email, looking for a funny GIF on Jiffy and giggling. And I want them to know that that email came from Kim, that one came from Jessica, that one was me, that one was Zach. Let your personality shine through. And to the extent that actually helps, I'm sure it helps a little bit, maybe. But at the end of the day, people just want another pair of jeans. Also, the price is right. It's not that expensive. $80 is a good price.
How do you track that? I know you said second purchase CAC and everything else effectiveness. Like, what tools were you using, or like what tactics are you using to actually track all these metrics?
Oh, I don't know. There's a company that you might know well called Source Medium. I buy a little bit too many data toys, but there's a method to that madness. So we started out, we were heavy users of Lifetimely. Just got it. Lifetimely got it right because it had the core metrics. Their cohort analysis and LTV to CAC stuff just was visualized great, and the price is right? Like it's simple math. You can do this in a spreadsheet. You shouldn't be paying $1,000 a month for that. We have Source Medium, which Will, I believe you've heard of. I actually
not
didn't
sponsored
use. What's up? Shout out to Faye. Great product. We actually didn't use it a lot at all for the first 18 months. But I knew that it's a great product. And I know Faye is amazing, and he has been an incredible help with random questions here and there. So we just paid to not use it, but it's, Faye actually ended up reminding me that Junior Reyes, who's now the head of growth, was available. And so we chatted, and now Junior is with the perfect jeans. So sure, that paid off. That was awesome. I'm really stoked about that. We work with a company called Salvit. Jordan Salvit is he has kind of a data infrastructure as a service business. It's really awesome. We've been building a lot of our contribution data lives there. So, we load all of our warehouse invoices. Every single order has full cost profile associated with it. So we can kind of aggregate and measure alongside that dimension. Basically, I have a lot of duplicative tools. None of them are breaking the bank. I also, and I think I'm wrong about this, but it goes back to stage appropriate growth. It's cheaper to have, at that point in the business, it's cheaper to have 2 or 3 tools and cross-reference them to make sure the numbers are right versus really diving deep and getting a hardcore data infrastructure. I'm not sure I'm right about that, but it was a choice I made and just not that expensive. So it was fine. What else are we using data-wise to track this? We use a lot of the Klaviyo native metrics. But at the end of the day, cohorts, we look at, we also use Northbeam for a lot of the attribution stuff. We do very lightweight MMM modeling with Salvit, and we also work with Madan, who is one of the co-founders of Measured, and we do occasional incrementality tests, and he's just also been awesome. He runs a program called M2 Attribution. It's basically an attribution and incrementality consultancy that I very strongly recommend if you have questions about that, because it's interesting. His perspective, and I totally agree with this, is that a lot of the software tools, and well, I'm not going into prescient, but that a lot of the software tools, it's one product for one brand, but most brands need a lot of customization in how they're going to decide to do an MMM, what are the right inputs, what are the right outputs. So I had very specific questions that it was helpful to do one-on-one with a consultant and build all of these models custom. Just because we were doing them against full contribution margin, I had different questions that I wanted to answer than kind of your single line software. So, it was one of those things that we were thinking about. Like we demoed Prescient and was very close to running with it, but we just ended up doing stuff on the custom basis. And I don't know, I'm a little bit weird. I do things a little bit differently than a lot of people. So I think that worked for me, but it's probably not right for everyone. I also like doing things custom with consultants because I want to learn. Um, Not
Yeah,
so
and you
much
have a
black
lean
box,
team.
that number.
You have a lean team,
Yeah, we
so
have a lean
you're
team.
still in the trenches. And I think
I'm
the
still in
big
the
thing that I've been
trenches.
hearing from marketers that's really interesting to me is that, like, how do you think about investing in tools and consultants versus just marketing dollars? Where there's not really a perceived return. How do you think about that trade off?
So I don't think you build your foundations on tools, right? Tools come and go. You build your foundations on ideas, on robust decision-making analytics, and that takes a lot of learning and education. So one of the reasons that I really do enjoy working with consultants is you can sit and geek out on like really interesting topics with them. We just started working with a tool called Edge Mesh, which is speeds up your site. Um, Fantastic. I could not tell you. I have no fucking idea how it works. So I got on the phone with Jacob, the founder, and I was like, "Can you just explain this to me? I live and die by my website. I don't really understand what you're doing, what Shopify doing." And we geeked out for an hour. Like he's a former high frequency trader. I've been involved with that a little bit tangentially in Wall Street. We shared war stories. First of all, it's a good relationship. I enjoy the relationships. It's really important. It makes the business fun. And I learned a lot. So I will generally lean on a consultant who can use off the shelf tools um, because of the relationship and B, the education. And I think those are the people you need a network, right? So when you have a question you don't know the answer to, which is every day, you want to know who to call, right? So like, why Source Medium? Because I knew if I needed to call someone and have a question, I could call you, I could call Faye and get a really good answer to a hard question. So I think it's less about like tools versus consultants or marketing dollars. It's finding the right relationships of the people where you're kind of aligned in how you're thinking about your business. Like one of the problems that I have with a lot of like the D2C Twitter and the LinkedIn Twitter is people are purporting that there's one solution to every problem. It's not true. Like there are different tools, different MMM models, different attribution formulas, different incrementality approaches. Different businesses need different things. It's, Junior used to work at Nectar Mattresses. They have, whatever, 20 SKUs, right? Repeat rate on a mattress, 0. Not really, but get the joke. It's a different business, different style of optimization, different way of thinking about Facebook. You don't want to use an MMM model that's tuned to a business like that for a gene business, which is functionally a semi-subscription repeat business. Just because we're all on Shopify does not mean we all run the same business. Radically different. If you're running Amazon, totally different game than if you're just D2C only. If you're doing wholesale, radically different game than if you're just single line. Super interesting. It's just very different businesses. It's all retail, sure. We're all selling and we're all, basically people, we all run a Shopify site, but that does not mean it's the same business that requires the same toolkit. And I think like it's one of the crimes of what's happening on LinkedIn and Twitter is everyone's kind of pitching the perfect solution and everyone's got to crush it. And the reality is everyone needs to understand their business really well, get the education, the foundations. What is it going to take for you to be successful? And then pick the tool set and right people for you. And I think that's like such a varied thing. It's like, Barry Hott, who I think is one of the best advertisers, says make ugly ads. I wholeheartedly agree with it. Ugly ads are what we do, like weird, ugly ads. That is not going to be the best idea for a hyper luxury brand, for Hermes. I mean, yes, it will probably perform quite well and better, but they have a different business and different considerations. So it's like everyone's just got to understand what they're going after and what their mission is, and then you start picking the tools. It is a problem when the tools pick you, or the tools are determining what your stages and steps are. Like that's not really what you want. That's a tail wagging the dog. It's a solution in search of a problem instead of I have a problem. What's the appropriate solution? Oh, so long-winded. Sorry, guys. I'm just blabbering.
You're the star of the show,
Hope that's
so
helpful.
no,
Nothing,
it
please.
all makes sense. I mean, I think in the end, I think yeah, you have a good point, which is there's a lot of solutions out there. The solutions need to be flexible for your business, and I agree with it. Education is the most important piece that I think is
Yeah.
often missing in a lot of these things, which is what do you do? Is it right for me? Like I think a lot of tools should be rejecting. The best tools I've seen
Yes.
reject customers
That's a great way to put it.
um, very purposely because they know they're not right for the tool quite yet.
Yeah.
And so I respect those tools. You know, shout out to those people who know who they are. Um, but yeah, in general,
I'm
I
not
think
sure
that
who
the
you're
challenge.
saying, but
No, they might know or not.
yeah,
This is
fair
the end
enough.
of the podcast. You know, I hope all I know is I hope the investors like don't listen at the end because you know I think the challenge with SaaS businesses in general is this services versus SaaS,
Yeah.
which we could talk a lot about
Yeah.
further. We only have a few minutes, but that is the biggest challenge. Is do you go? I think we've seen a lot of people go for tools because they like the people, not necessarily because they're using and adopting the tool itself, which
Yeah.
is also one of the reasons why we're doing this podcast, so we can like share a lot of the knowledge that we actually see as vendors ourselves and talking to customers, obviously talk to people like yourself. So yeah, Bart, anything
Well,
else? I know I've been hogging the space as well on the
no,
questions.
by the way, well, that's a very important point because I probably overstep and I saying that it's a lot of we're using the word tools, but a lot of the businesses, right? The SaaS businesses are doing an incredible job educating the market. I suppose and this is a very ugly point of view, is that there are probably too many ecom brands that are surviving as zombies and are really just don't have a great future. And they're surviving because they've been educated just enough to survive, right? Like, how many people discovered that Google brand search on Triple Whale isn't maybe the most incremental thing? And like, great, so cool, you survived, that got you past one thing, but it doesn't mean that your business is going to thrive. And if you didn't kind of know that already, I'm not saying that you can't learn it, but like, there are certain things that you need to kind of learn the hard way by scraping around, by making mistakes, by, losing, so to speak. And there are certain instincts that you need to develop. And it's great that there's a lot of education happening, but I also have the suspicion that we're in a great economy. At some point, I have no idea when, there will be a consumers will have less of a propensity to purchase. There'll be some kind of, hopefully not, but there'll be likely some kind of recession. And, businesses with weak balance sheets typically don't survive. And businesses with products that are not necessarily beloved by customers, but sell, may not survive. It's not the worst thing. It's a shakeout of business. I don't know where we'll land on it. I have no idea. Like I'm optimistic. I plan for that. We try to build up a really strong balance sheet because of that. We build a lot of the business around defensive financing. But like that's scary. And I think, there's been such a good job of educating founders and operators on how to run their business correctly. And it's a lot of what you guys are doing, right? Like with with Prescient, with Source Medium. It's really what you guys are doing. It's like saying, here's a smarter way to run your business. But it also, I think a lot of people just take in that information and just do it without actually like doing the work to cement it into the foundations, if that makes sense. And I don't know how to do that better. I don't, beyond, it's just, it's a good thing, but it's also like the foundations of it are need to also be really firm. And that's something that we think a lot about.
Love it. Last question for me, kind of building off of zombie brands on Shopify.
Oh no.
Definitely something that I've seen. Obviously, Shopify took a pretty big dip in the last 2 weeks, like since I guess last week, since announcing earnings. I think they're down like close to 20%. The reality, it's also a TAM problem from the SaaS side, right? There's like really 15,000 customers you can go after that are like
Right.
Shopify Plus that have. Just personally, I guess both for Will and for you, Ovadia, are you guys buying the dip right now? How are you thinking about Shopify's future?
Oh my God, I don't know how to buy stock. I don't, no idea. But Shopify's valuation is indexed towards the US economy, right? Like, so if you're bearish or bullish on the US economy and recession and interest rates, the funniest, look, I come from business, from fixed income bonds. So the funniest thing to me is that people love prognosticating about stocks, but they have no idea what the 10-year interest rate is or what shape the yield curve is in. And if you don't know the answer to that, you shouldn't be even thinking about buying anything but an index fund. I am very bullish on taking the stock price aside. I think e-commerce, I'll take the unpopular side of this, the unpopular opinion. I think e-commerce as a consumer facing experience kind of sucks. I say that my brand as well. It's not that good. It's not as good as Amazon, put it that way. Shipping is too slow. Fulfillment is incredibly difficult. Scale is not as readily available as people think it is. It is a hard business, and I have a feeling that there is an evolution of it. I think it's at the core retail of it. Buy a product for X dollars, sell it for Y. Great. That's going to continue to be. I have a feeling that there's an evolution. I'm not sure what about ecom. Or let's say the meta Shopify version of ecom. I think there's evolutions in logistics and shipping that probably need to happen. But even with all of that, it will grow because the innovators and the product innovators are selling direct to consumer. If you have a brand, it is a phenomenal business. And I think Shopify has no real competition. So, and it's a payment, it's a gateway business, right? They make their money on transactions and collecting a little slice of payment processing. Fantastic business. I don't know if the stock's good or bad, but I know that it's a phenomenal business. It will get crushed, I'm sure, if there's a recession, but at the end of the day, they can shave down a lot of kind of fixed expense and survive. So I imagine I don't know what it costs to run Shopify in terms of like unit economics, server costs and all, but I pay them a lot of money every month. Probably not
Yeah,
enough, frankly.
they don't have your working capital facility quite yet, maybe.
Right.
But I think without like giving too much stock advice, I think the interesting thing I've seen about Shopify is that I agree with you, Ovadia. It's a great business. There's no one else really like it. I think what I've seen, like I'm in San Francisco, I see them billboards everywhere about enterprise, enterprise, enterprise.
Yeah.
And I think it's exactly what Bar you mentioned. The TAM is just constrained. They already have that middle market, low end market. Everyone's going to sign up for Shopify. It'll be,
There's no one else.
it'll be the pie that keeps growing a little bit, but it's going to be like, churn. And then it has this. It'll be pretty, I think, even. I think the reality is it's going to take longer for them to grow now than it used to.
Yeah.
And that's just the movement to enterprise, which is it's a timing thing. And so they're putting a ton of resources into enterprise and conversion of other platforms into retail POS. And they could be long-term successful, but it's going to take a massive amount of time. And you're just not going to see that level of growth. So they're going to, I feel like, have a period of time where they're talking about cash flow a lot right now, which I think is a pretty big indicator that they're like, we want to be efficient with our capital right now. And they're moving away from the growth narrative, which is we are growing at this crazy pace. And they're talking about their conversions to enterprise. They're making acquisitions technically now, and acquihires that are, I think, more bundling opportunities for their enterprise package is like what I think. And they're really trying to put that picture of enterprise. So very interesting, point around.
I've read some very, very silly takes of this on LinkedIn. I sometimes write out a comment and then I don't send it because it's not nice. But I think the way to think about this, if you take even a step more from that, is I think it goes back to what I was saying, but I would just add to what you're saying because I think what you said is very important. Is if you think about the world as Walmart, Amazon, and Shopify, how does Shopify deliver as good a buying experience as Amazon and Walmart? Which means how can they help merchants? First of all, returns suck in e-commerce. It's an awful experience. I'm not going to say names, but it's terrible. You need to get returns as good as Amazon, as easy as Amazon. You need warehousing to be much easier. We all know that a lot of brands, I love my warehouse now, capacity, they're phenomenal. I strongly recommend them. That was a clear shout out, but I do. It's very hard. Founders don't know how to work with warehouses. Fulfillment is an extremely hard problem. I would encourage all founders to develop real partnerships, friendships with your 3PLs, work really well with them, understand the problems they're facing because it is not easy to do, especially in apparel. It is super hard. And I think until the Shopify ecosystem has the reverse logistics and fulfillment side of it, to really deliver to consumers, to customers, as good an experience as Walmart or Amazon, that is one of the big levers that's holding Shopify back because I think we're good at logistics. We spend a lot of time on it, a lot of time, like exceptional amount of time on it. We invest in it. We work really hard on it because I think Jeff Bezos gave us the playbook, right? It's like everyone's saying like, oh, I want to pay less for shipping, slower shipping. I'm the opposite. I want to pay more and get product to customers faster. Like we've studied this. We work with Pretty Damn Quick, PDQ, more shout outs.
You could do
But
shout outs. We're not sponsoring, we're not doing
no,
shout outs. So you
these
can
are all
sponsor, you
things
can
that,
do
by the
whatever
way,
you
I
want.
think are great. No, I'm just being self-aware about it. But I think like we have seen that there is faster shipping results in faster repurchase rates and potentially higher LTV. So it's like something that we're focused on studying. It's like Jeff Bezos told us this. Your e-commerce is retention. It's not meta. It's retention. It's retention, retention, retention. That's how you make money. You need people to buy stuff twice. If not 10 times. So it's like we are building what I hope is a 10 or 15 or 20-year brand, whether we sell it, whether we keep it, that's what we want. And the only way to do that is for people to come back and buy your products. And the only way people are going to do that is if it's easy to buy, easy to return, and product gets to them quickly and it's a good experience. Every time product is late, you call customer service, they give you a silly answer. Every time you have these weird discounts show up, every time you buy something and then it's cheaper a week and a half later because they sent out a discount, that is dilutive to your brand experience and your customers are not going to be happy about it. And so I think that's where Shopify needs to catch up. Whatever. Broadly speaking, customer experience on Shopify kind of sucks. I do not like shopping on Shopify. That should say it all. I will buy on Amazon, and I'm good at it. Like I know when the brands are doing stuff. I'm like, cool. They use this tool. I get what they're doing with the discount. I figured it out. It's like I get it, but like I don't love shopping from Shopify sites. It's too fractured.
You're probably stripping off the UTM links too, but
yeah, for sure,
yeah.
sure.
All right, well, Ovadia, I know we went into overtime, so thanks for
Sorry,
kind of
guys.
No, thanks for
thank
sticking with
you.
us. Like
Yeah,
that was
appreciate it.
great. In terms of, I'm sure you don't want people to actually even follow you or contact you, but we always like to leave the room if people have it. If you want to leave your phone number so people can send you voicemails or whatever. Go ahead.
No, feel free. If anyone has a question, Ovadia at theperfectgene.nyc, feel free. I cannot promise I'll respond promptly, but I'll do my best. And yeah, it's all good stuff. I'd say like, what would I leave? Yeah, I don't know. This is fun. This is good. I have a lot of weird opinions. They're not substantiated at all. They're just nonsense off the top of my head. So that's all I got. I also really did not mean, Will, really, I swear I had no idea you guys did a golf event. I swear. I did not know that. I apologize. Please cut that out. That's not nice.
We definitely will. And yeah, thanks so much, Ovadia. For anyone listening, if you're not already subscribed to their email newsletter, we are sending out a weekly newsletter as well to kind of highlight the podcast and some of the bigger takeaways. So make sure to subscribe. And thank you so much.
My pleasure.